will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Dear educators and to my honorable peers, to define this motion, top-down historiography is a historiography that focuses itself more on how the elites, major organizations, governments, and major institutions have affected the occurrence or event themselves within a post-conflict country. What is a post-conflict nation or country? This is a nation that has just overcome a major conflict in which it can involve civil wars themselves, etc. And what is bottom-up historiography? It is another subsection of historiography that focuses itself more on how the people themselves, the majority, or those that are not in a position of power, you would say, affect the occurrence or event themselves or the conflicts themselves in a point of view that focuses more on them rather on how the top, or we would say the ones in power, have an effect on this. Now, what are the people? Okay, the individuals involved that within this motion are one, your average Joe, or people that just want to try to go on with their daily life. What do we mean by this? Now, these are people that are actually firsthand affected by the war regime or by the famines that are caused by the conflicts. They can be individuals from different backgrounds, or your average Joe, just in different forms. Like for instance, farmers, coal miners, merchants, etc., which means a lot of fields are being affected. The economic sector, agriculture sector, and also the ones with natural resources, right? These are people who are mostly not knowledgeable. Not that they're stupid, not that they're not trying to understand, or how they're imbeciles that cannot think. If the opposite side, if the government side of the house want to propose that, but these are people who have expertise in different sectors and not really, for instance, in how the decision of another sector or how the decision from the government or from another government will affect them directly or these other sectors. And two, the second group that is involved within this motion is those in power or the government or the top parties themselves. Now these are people that the government side of the house has failed to emphasize. What do we mean that by this? These people, the government, the elites, those in power, who have powers as the government side of the house has aforementioned, they are the people that have the responsibility, the authority, and the proper knowledge that they need to actually understand on what is going on within their country and how to solve it, or how to solve the conflict that is happening to their country, like i.e. civil wars, etc. These are people who have the proper knowledge or information, for instance, files that cannot be accessed by commoners or people that are the position under them. These are people that have the authority to actually understand and make the finalized decision on what will happen regardless. And in our case, what the government was under the assumption of is that they don't, in the top-down historiography, it emphasizes more on puts those in power on the pedestal who already have everything they need, or already have the wealth, or put the credit on them. Oftentimes, this is not always the case, in which we're not trying to romanticize them or removing relevance. We are trying to pinpoint that they are also basically at times the cause, whether it is to their own country, i.e. civil wars, or also regimes, that how these people in power are the cause themselves, and how it should be also emphasized. And we're not trying to romanticize or removing relevance, right? That's what the government side of the house has said. Even if we're not trying to remove relevance or romanticizing them, the government is downplaying the responsibility they have on the authority they have on finalizing the final decision of, even if it's a collective decision made by the whole mass. They have the final authority to actually decide on what's going to happen, right? This is downplaying on how oftentimes the government, in this case, in our instance, oftentimes fail the people, and how we should also put light to that, because they also should be put to light, but not always that in a way we're romanticizing them. We're trying to pinpoint that they're also in charge of the mistakes, or for instance, of the downfall of a civilization, right? And second, how it all comes from a build-up is what the government side of the house is trying to propose. Despite the people being the root, as example, like for instance, certain decisions being driven by people themselves, either from protests, etc. The people of bigger power, those on the top, have the authority to actually finalize on what is going to happen. Like, for instance, as I've mentioned to you, the people that are involved within this nation, the regimes and the civil wars, are people that are basically average Joe that just want their rights to be given back, right? And oftentimes these vulnerable people, not that they don't want to quote unquote think, which oftentimes is emphasized. So no, they just don't have the proper knowledge to do so, as they have the expertise, and they don't understand that how if they took a certain decision, it will affect other decisions too. And our side of the house believes that even if it comes from a certain build-up, we have to also build up how everything is built brick by brick. A house is being built by brick by brick. We have to also put those who initiated the building of the house itself to a certain recognition, or how they have to be put on spotlight in a way that's it is also their responsibility, and how the fault is also theirs if anything happens. If the house quote unquote goes down with the all the bricks intact, we're also going to blame the one who built it, right? Not just the bricks themselves, even though they're the roots themselves. And sometimes the people are not knowledgeable, as we have aforementioned, whether it will affect other sectors or not. And we will also emphasize on how the government side of the house has said about representation. But nonetheless, representation is oftentimes downplayed anyways by the people that are in power. And we would say also about representation is also going to happen in a way that we will emphasize later on. And how it's going to remove relatability to those reading the historiography itself is what we had inferred, which is not really true. If we take, for instance, focus on how the government affected all of these sectors, those from the different sectors will understand in a way that all of this of the cause is based on one thing: the finalization. For instance, this is an instance that we keep using as it is more easier to emphasize on and systemize. And each individual from each sector that I mentioned, like coal miners, those in agriculture, like farmers, are going to find kinship in, and how they will understand that, oh, despite our differences, we do have the same problem in the end, right? If we focus on how the people on the top have also affected us. And how we see it, how our system works, is if we focus ourselves more on the top-down historiography rather than the bottom-up, we will see the bigger picture rather than focusing on in the bigger picture on how we see it. Those in power have the more authority. How not everything was foreseen because we did not know, and how much those in power have failed us. And the benefits of this is we don't emphasize solely on how it's a collective thing, but there's also someone in power that has the authority over us, and how we did not realize it, and how we should have how they should have how they should have known better and have the authority to do so too. I will end my speech here. Thank you.